Welcome to Live Town Hall. My name is Michael A. Charbon. Today, we spend an hour with the leader of the Trillium Party, Bob Yaciuk. Bob, welcome to Live Town Hall.
Thank you, Michael. It's my pleasure to be here.
So a little bit of background on the Trillium Party. They were founded in 2014, and they are called the Common Sense Alternative Party. They actually have one member in the legislature, Jack McLaren, who was a former PC, went over to the Trillium Party. The Trillium Party, as I said, has been around since 2014, and they actually they lack party status, but they are recognized as the fourth party in the legislature. Although Jack McLaren was not elected as a Trillium Party member, he sits as an independent. But what Jack McLaren did in leaving the Patrick Brown PCs was give legitimacy and really raised the ability of the Trillium Party to run, as one would say, in the election that we have going on here. I've had the opportunity to interview Bob previously. The first time we met was when Jack crossed the floor.
When Jack made his announcement and he come over there, I think yours was the first show that we were on.
Yes, we did.
It was pretty exciting. I remember Jack and I were both in here and we're discussing the dynamics of it, and oh my gosh, the difference between what they're professing happened and what really happened, it was kind of the eye-opener for me, like, wow.
It was interesting. It was, you two gentlemen came here wide-eyed and bushy-tailed because it was, no, it really was. I mean, here you have a gentleman who...
It was exciting.
Who came over and really gave a bump to your party, a positive bump. So today there was a whole lot of mishmash that the Liberals released a whole bunch of stuff that they believe was from 2006. Do you think any of that is going to have any effect on the Conservatives at this point?
I don't know. It's been a tradition of these old stories affecting things dramatically. Jack McLaren, he was nailed because he was criticized by Patrick Brown for a video that was 5.5 years old.
It was about French language.
Yes, and all he said was, "Well, don't count on him talking about French language before the election." Blatantly honest statement. Oh, and then who? Michael Harris, MPP Michael Harris, was canned for some text that he did, 5.5, almost 6 years earlier as well. So I don't know, Michael, anymore. It's topsy-turvy. People don't seem to care about policy. They don't care about what I thought were real values. They care about the soundbite and the sordid details of something. All the debt we have, 330 to 390, depending on what you count.
350 at the end of 2018.
Depending on who you believe, the Auditor General or the Liberal Party bookkeepers. It's called bogus.
So far, and CBC has a poll tracker poll, and it was released today. The Progressive Conservatives are sitting at 37%. The NDP a close second at 35%. The Liberals at 21%. And the Green Party at 4.3%. And, of course, the Trillium Party and a bunch of others, you're just under 1%.
Well, that's what the CBC says. The CBC also won't allow us to be in their debate. What's the big machine afraid of?
So I want to ask you about that. Last week, I had an opportunity to sit down with Mike Schreiner from the Green Party. And he really believes that because he had a certain percentage of the vote, he should have been part of the discussion. When we talk about different parties and different perspectives, I mean, you're categorized as the common sense alternative. What gives a party the right to be part of a discussion? Because or a debate, I should say, because we've only had the Liberals, Conservatives, and the NDP. We've never had any other voices. You're a common sense alternative, as is the Green Party, one would say. How do you feel about the way these debates have been conducted?
No, I don't like it. I was raised right from birth, I suppose, believing that everyone is equal and everybody should have the opportunity to be heard. I don't believe anyone should ever be filtering anybody. I attended a debate today, the Newmarket Chamber of Commerce, and I was so upset with them because they refused to have any of the alternative candidates in there. And 4 days before, I attended one in the town of Aurora that had the alternative candidate. So don't tell me about the logistics of how it can be done or can't be done. It can be done, but they made a decision not to do it.
But to take the alternative, some people would say that the three main parties who have garnered the majority of votes of the electorate should be taken into consideration. Otherwise, we're wasting the time.
Why not the two? Why not the two big parties? That sounds uncomfortable to you?
Absolutely.
Okay, how about in some area? Why? Give me
the
logic
I get it.
that makes sense
get
there. That doesn't make sense with the fringe.
I think some people are the Rhino Party, the Communist Party, the my left foot is larger than my right foot party.
In a disparaging way.
No, but what we're saying, what some people are not what some people are saying is that time is important. How do you open that envelope to embrace, let us say, the Green and the Trillium, but then those of the Rhino Party or the Communist Party or the I hop on my left
Or how about
foot
the
party?
Conservative Party? And let me, and why I'm doing that in my all superior tone is because this. So the Canadian Alliance aligned with the Progressive Conservative, and then they turned into the Conservative Party. Yet not a single one of them was voted as a Conservative member of Parliament. Oops, that one doesn't fit into the paradigm.
That's interesting. No, I know. I mean, these are questions to be brought up. Live Town Hall is an interactive show. If you have a question for Bob Yaciuk, you can contact us at Facebook Live/Live Town Hall. We'll take your questions, and you have the opportunity to ask the common sense alternative leader what he feels is going to happen. We've got a bunch of questions here. I want to talk about issues. I mean, it's interesting. Some people have said that the PCs, although they're leading, really haven't had anything to do with issues. There's no real platform. It's very lukewarm because it's the Tim Hudak scare. You know, I'm going to fire 100,000 public sector workers, and all of a sudden the Liberals got in because QP and everybody got together. Do you think that's part of Rob Ford's tact right now?
No, it might be a part of Doug Ford's tact.
I meant Doug Ford.
I know you did.
Thank you.
Sorry, but
no, you're all good. You're all good. Hey, when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But do you think that's part of Doug Ford's tact?
I think that we have there's nothing the PCs do better than lose elections. Throw it away. Every leader of the PC party, if they just went on vacation for the electoral period, if they went to Florida and didn't hand out their phone number, they would be sitting as the MPP, as the premier of the province. Tim Hudak, John Tory, and now Doug Ford. We're watching him crash in flames right now. All kinds of nonsense.
But he really hasn't done too much wrong. There's been a couple of politicians around him who
hasn't
have
done
slipped
things
up.
wrong. Why do you say that?
Well,
he becomes a leader
he's
by
kept pretty
this.
quiet. He's a little Teflon, if you wish. It's very hard to pick at something.
That's true. It's kind of amazing. But a lot of people aren't. It's like the guy could. Well, no, I was about to go down a road that I shouldn't go down. But so he become leader. So the PCs never had any policy for 4 years while they're in government. All of a sudden they had a policy convention with all the grassroots that everybody had to pay, what, $400 to go see or some ridiculous amount. And so they made up this People's Promise thing. Every candidate
Do you miss Patrick Brown?
You know what? I did at first, but I'm starting to think Doug's going to be worse. Okay. So anyway, so they had this common sense, or not common sense, they had this People's Promise. And every leadership candidate said that they were going to abide by it. That lasted for 17.5 seconds. And then Doug Ford pretty much stole our entire platform. Yes, I used the word stole because it was, but took our entire platform that we've had for 3 years. And in one day, not through consultation with the caucus members, not through consultation with the grassroots people, just said, this is what we stand for. And he got elected. Now, as leader, within 6 days after that, one of his promises was that we are going to endorse the private sector distribution of legalized marijuana. And 6 days, he said, nah, we're going to use the LCBO model that the Liberals had. Within 10 days after he became leader, he said, one of the things he said was, the sex education curriculum is going to be scrapped and we're going to go. Within 10 days after that in Focus Ontario, he said, well, the sex education curriculum is at the bottom of the totem pole. In a province that has 10,000 things wrong with it, that means you're never hearing from it again. And then at the same time as that happened, he also said, or not said, but he promised that he wasn't going to have whip votes. Well, the party whip is still there and they had whip votes. So does that sound familiar with another leader that was just thrown out?
Interesting. So you're running as the leader of the Trillium Party. You're running in Newmarket, Aurora.
Yes.
Now, interestingly enough, you have a bit of a cachet. There are people that know of you, have heard of you. You've done a fair bit of media. Again, you're the common sense alternative party, the Trillium Party, very Ontario-esque. I found it interesting when we did a little bit of research when we found out who the Progressive Conservatives put to run against you, Bob. Who was that, pray tell?
Okay. First it was Charity McGrath. And then you
so
decided we don't want that.
Hold on. Who's Charity McGrath?
Charity McGrath was the person who was allegedly elected by the grassroots. Now, there was so much controversy, like so many of the other ridings where they had nomination scandals, that after Dougie got in, he said, no, we've done our research. You were just too.
So how many times have you run in Newmarket, Aurora?
Twice.
Twice.
One when we formed the
party in
and that was a
2014.
protocol to form the party,
Right.
which we spent $0 on, and this is the first serious time I've run in here.
Right.
So
you have a formidable campaign. You're the leader of the Trillium Party. You located in an area which.
So we're ready to take them on. The big guns are coming out, and I'm looking real good. So I can just imagine the backroom people with their cigars sitting around the progressive conservative table saying, "Oh, how do we handle Yaciuk? I know. We're going to put Christine Elliott in his riding. Bring it on. No problem, Christine. You got a lot of baggage there that I can deal with as well."
That's a tough.
How so?
That's a tough road to hoe.
Oh, I can see where they're coming from. You know what? A lot of people fall in the trap of, Michael. All they see is the positive one side. When you're in any battle, you got to look at both sides. If I was running against you, for instance, I know you're formidable. You have good communication skills and all kinds of good things. But as if I'm battling against you, I don't care what your good stuff is. I just got to put a block on that. Now I got to find your weaknesses. Every candidate has weaknesses. I have some, but I'm not telling you what they are. But she has her weaknesses. For instance, when she... Oh, well, we won't go down that road.
No, I just wanted to point out, I always find it interesting when it's kind of like a matchup, right? You know, when a hockey team, when the coach matches the lines to... If Ovechkin's out there, you got to be able to have good defense if you got good offense. So I just found it interesting after a little bit of digging to find out
they were afraid
that the Conservatives put Christine Elliott in there. Now, I wouldn't say she's a shoo-in because that wouldn't be fair, but you have a formidable competitor there in, I mean, the second runner-up to the leadership twice.
You know, I'm the Trillium Party, eh? There's nowhere in this province that is not formidable. And what is so flattering, they thought they had to bring the biggest gun they had in to go against me. You know what? That's a feather in my hat I'm going to wear proudly. And then I'm going to do everything I can to win because I still think we can win this.
No, Bob, I've had the opportunity to interview yourself and, as I said, Jack McLaren, and you speak very well. You have the passion of Ontario with you. I just wonder why you haven't gained more momentum or why there hasn't been more of your perspective. I respect the three parties that are running because they have well-formed platforms. You have a well-formed platform too. I mean, many of the things that your policies are standing for is healthcare, education policy, taxation, sex ed, carbon tax, hydro. And one thing that stuck out, which was very interesting and unique of other parties do not have, is referendums. Tell our folks at home a little bit about referendums. How does that
You've asked me a couple questions there. Why isn't our message getting out, or are we
yes, I did.
Referendum? Which I'll go with.
Start with. Let's go backwards to forward. Start with referendums, and then why you haven't got. And then we'll get to some questions because we have a couple here.
Well, one of the something that's very popular, and it's an American. I modeled it a little bit after the American thing, and when I say I modeled it, I mean we have our group of people that all sit down and talk about it. And some serious issues should be sent to a referendum. One of them might be the hydro sale. Maybe that should have gone to a public referendum, whether they should get rid of 60%, close to 60% of the hydro. That might have been able to go. Why not put a referendum on a ballot? How hard would that be to put a...
People say it costs about $7 million, if not more, just to conduct that, and then it's about another 10 or 15
How does it cost $7 million? How much does it cost?
The organization and all the rest of it.
Oh my God, they say everything costs. You know what? It costs $1.6 billion to not build a hydro plant or a gas plant. Yes. So, I mean...
So would you then say that we should take a referendum when we have an election? It should be piggybacked on the ballot of the election?
That's what our thought is. The bottom line is the Trillium Party believes we got to get more input from the people because so far there is no input from the people. And when I say that, right now almost every vote in provincial parliament is a whip vote. You look at the voting record, it's mass voting there.
So a whip vote, for those who don't know, is basically party line.
Yeah, so there's a guy who's called the party whip. He has a nice office with gold lettering on it.
And some are from hydro, another one is from health, another's from transportation.
No, there's only one party whip.
But they have, okay.
So the Liberals will have a party whip.
Right.
The PCs will have their party whip. And what they do is, so if let's say you represent Brampton South, and if you and you say, well, the people in Brampton South, you go to your leader, let's say you're Kathleen Wynne's leader. and you say, the people in Brampton South really think we should have this hospital, and I want to vote for a new medical thing, whatever, and you want to do, and I think we should support this. And you say, I'm going to represent my people. The party whip will walk down the hallway, come to your office, and knock on your door and come in and straighten you right out and say, you're voting the way we tell you. Otherwise, you're going to lose your resources. You're going to lose your sitting on this committee where you make a few extra dollars for leading. And you will be punished severely. You will even be sent home. Jack McLaren crossed the floor because he couldn't tolerate the party whip thing anymore, because he was forced to vote for things that he didn't want to vote for.
And that's one of the things on the Trillium Party, that you will not have a party whip.
I'm the leader of the party. If there should be one single person in this party that says, I love a party whip, it should be me. The proudest moment of my life, Michael, will be this: when I'm the MPP and leader of the Trillium Party in the House of Parliament, and I see our Trillium MPP from the Beaches voting against the Trillium Party MPP from North Bay. Because at that moment I'll know they're voting for their citizens right there, and the government doesn't have to fall.
So back to my first question then, before we get to our questions. And again, Live Town Hall is an interactive show. You can go to Facebook Live/Live Town Hall, and you can ask Bob Yaciuk from the Trillium Party several questions. So again, to my first question, how come your party is not better in the public eye and doesn't have a larger vocal presence to the voter?
It's a system, and I know that's a big, nice phrase, but let me give you some examples so I can explain the system here. The Trillium Party of Ontario, we've done something nobody else has ever had. We've had a person move from a major party over to ours. You had hardly any press on that. Really, it was hardly any press. And then
well, it was an embarrassment to the governing. To the government, because someone was crossing, and the opposition. So
Michael, I thank you for having us in, because you had the courage to have us in.
Well, we wanted to know why, and we also wanted to hear the real story, and the Trillium Party wasn't. That's why we had you and Jack in.
That's called journalism. Why didn't every person have us in? Why didn't the CBC have us in? Why didn't the CTV? Why didn't City Pulse? Why didn't...
Well, because it wasn't necessary fodder, because it had no effect.
No, because a deer was running around on Highway 401 that day, so we had to do that. That's why. Now, let's go over a few
I love you, Bob.
Let's go over a few other things. We had 623 members, PC members, moved from the riding of King Vaughan in one day. 620, never been done in the history of this country.
But Bob, your message, I want to bring you back to your message. How do you get the common sense alternative message to the voter in Ontario when you don't have the opportunity to go to major debates, because you're basically fifth on the wheel? I mean, we'll give Mike Schreiner fourth with the Green.
Give him fourth. I challenge you on that one.
Give him, well, the numbers say that he is.
I have a sitting member, he doesn't.
That's true. That's true.
I get a voice in Queen's Park. I can call a press conference on Thursday if I want to.
That's true. He can't. That's true. And well, I'm hoping that for Mike that may be a difference, because the more voices we have in Parliament, the better. But how do you get your message out, Bob?
By always getting back up again and going for another fight. By never giving up. And that used to be the way the Canadian people were. That used to be, you'd never give up. Right now we are so beaten down that as soon as the going gets a little bit tough, you just give up. I've gone out to debates. This morning I was to a debate that they refused to let me in. I brought some signs out there, I brought some supporters, and I wrote banned on the side of the sign.
I hope you get some pictures and some papers.
Well, the cool, interesting part was, and you don't just say, well, we're not allowing, they say, we're not allowing you in. Well, that's fine. Thank you for this conversation. We went in. And then we're in there. And then I have my videographer taking pictures of me, because I can get out there in social media, which really bums out a lot of the media people. And so next thing you know, I have other media coming around. Next thing you know, I go outside to take some other photographs, and now other cars are coming in because publishers have sent photographers up to take pictures. That's how. I didn't lay down. I didn't lay down when the going got tough. And that's what we need. If you were running for office, if you were one of our MPP candidates for MPP, that's who you want to have representing the people in there. Oh, my people in my riding need this, and I'm going to fight to the mat. And because you threaten to send me home, Mr. Leader, there's no reason why I'm not going to stop fighting. You just keep getting up and fighting, and we have made so much headway. We have candidates from one end of the province to the other end of the province right now, and that's done in one term, and we have a sitting member Never in one term. We've had 4 PC ridings move over to us en masse, and you never heard about this. Can I give you one example of something I've done?
And then I'm going to get to some of these questions here.
Okay. So when I put out press releases, we put out regular press releases.
I get them once in a while.
Right? And I can see where they go, who opens them up. I have sent press releases to all the major, like we have a mailing list, I think, of about 600 people. And I have sent them out, and I can see who opens them up. So I've seen some to City Pulse TV, and some to CTV and CBC. Those are the big ones that I want to reference. I've seen when we moved the 623 members over, put that out, it was open between 50 and almost 80 times by some of these places. You try and open an email 50, 80 times, it's impossible. So that means they send it around to all their editors, all their people, and then they chose not to write about it. They made a conscious decision not to write about the biggest political move in this country. You're not getting the information. You have to look for the information because they don't want you to have the information. They want you to be controlled. They want to make sure that you have one of the 2 parties in. The NDP are outliers, and they're afraid of those. They want PC and they want Liberal, and they vote. Their voting record is almost identical in this last term because the same trough is always opened up. You can't remember why you voted out the PCs. Well, not you voted out, but why the PCs were voted out.
You don't know what I voted last time.
Last year, you voted by secret ballot, I suspect. Nobody can remember why the PCs were voted out. When I asked them,
I know why. I know why the PCs lost the election.
Oh, you know why?
Tim
why were they
Hudak
voted
lost
out?
the election because he said he was going to get rid of 100,000
why
public
were they
sector
voted
work.
out? Nobody remembers. Go back and go Google it and check. You're going to find the same stuff for the same reasons you're voting Kathleen Wynne out. It's like you get beat up by one, and you beat up. If this was a court of law, their judge would say, "Okay, you two, sort it out and find somebody else to go live with. This isn't working for you." Hey, the Trillium Party is that other place to go live with. Our candidates only want to represent you. They're idealists, and there's not a lot of those people.
Well, that brings up another question, but I promised Bob I would get to some. So Bob Yaciuk of the Trillium Party, let's answer a couple of questions. Shamila says, what would your party do for affordable housing in Peel?
For affordable housing, we got to take some of the controls off. It's regulations that are stopping houses from being built. Right now we have, in order to put up a new house, if we were in another province, for instance, Quebec or the prairies, you could build houses, you put your application in, you could build a house within a month, you could start building it. Here, it can take up to 2 years. And then in regulations, we have 360,000 regulations that you have to abide by. That's why our houses are so expensive. Plus all the rules and regs about who you can have in
it. But affordable housing, the premise of affordable housing, Bob, is that if you're going to build 100 houses, let's say, 100 houses of whatever your rate is, and you have to build 20 houses of lower cost for those people who can't afford the other 100. Well, that's what they're talking about.
That's what they want.
Do you have a plan to execute that?
No. One of the things, that's just the way it is. What I'm going to tell you here, folks, today is this. One thing, you might not always get what you want to hear from me, but I will tell you the honest truth the best I can. Because we are a firm believer your community should be allowed to build whatever it wants in that community. And if you, we have a community up where I am, close to where I am, called King City area.
King City, yeah.
Yeah. Now, they had a problem. They had a problem that they had such massive lots up there.
Oh, monster homes.
Yeah, and they couldn't afford the infrastructure between them, so the taxes were through the roof. There was a point where the region was going to take it over and divide up among other ones because they didn't want to have any of the higher density housing in there. Well, that's a problem they had to deal with, and then they started putting higher density in. So communities should be, if you live in a community, you should decide whether you want to have mixed housing. You should be able to decide whether you want high-end housing or low-end housing. It will adapt itself out. It'll adjust itself. We've had that since the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and 70s. And those were strong, healthy communities. It works itself out. You should be allowed to move somebody into your home if you want. Why do we have so many regulations on?
But affordable housing, I just want to bring you full circle. Affordable housing is something that is planned, that when a developer does a deal with the city or the province and puts together a development, that there is a certain sector within that development which is dedicated to lower income earners who can afford a smaller, more equitable house.
Let the municipality sort that out. That's not a provincial issue, in my opinion. Let it be closer to the bone, to the people that live in that community. And you know, if you have grown adult kids, you're going to want them to be able to live in your community. At least that's the normal one. Maybe not.
What about that? What about that story? The guy who's 30 years old, his parents took him to court to evict him from the house he was living in the basement. I couldn't believe, like, what are we come to?
Wait,
that's affordable housing. Oh my gosh.
We don't believe in the forced affordable housing. That's plain simple, and I know that's going to rub some people the wrong way. I'm sorry.
Tracy gives a comment. She says, "Isn't that what the PCs are doing now? Hide and seek. Do you think the PCs are hide and seek? Are they afraid to put a table out there to really talk about their platform? I mean, we touched on the Tim Hudak syndrome, where he said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get rid of 100,000 public sector workers, and that, they say, was the devil in the details that ruined it supposedly for the PCs and brought the Liberals back. You mentioned John Tory. His loss was because he was talking about religion, Catholic schools. Do you think that's part of the
Liberals are better campaigners than the PCs? Oh. Done, settled. If it wasn't the Tim Hudak statement that you're referring to, they would have been narrowing it down to another statement that he made. The Liberals know how to campaign. They're geniuses on the thing, and Don't get me, I'm not advocating that it's right, but you know, right now the Tories, the PCs, and the Liberals, they're avoiding debates left, right, and center. Trying to get one to come out to anything is pretty hard. You know,
well, we've had that problem. I mean, we invited Doug, we invited Kathleen. I mean, I've sat down with all the leaders of every party other than Doug Ford. I've had the opportunity. They've come here and talked with our viewers. They've done live town hall. Through our live town hall and our Brampton Focus, I mean, we represent a huge wrath of people who watch us because we are a political incubator. And we got Mike Schreiner, and we were very grateful for him. And we have yourself. A lot of the other politician leaders, because we weren't broadcast, as one would say, as to a large base. I mean, we get thousands and thousands of hits, but people archive us, and what they say makes a difference. Sometimes it's more dangerous to attend than it is not to.
You asked me earlier how we're going to get our message out. I'm sitting here with you today, Michael. You know what my pad answer right now why the PCs aren't showing up is because they're probably stuck on the 407. Oh, I'm sorry. Inside joke.
Stuck on the John says, Bob, you should stop by Syncreon on his way back to Newmarket. I do not know what that means. Do you know what Syncreon is?
Yeah, I do know what Syncreon is. Syncreon is the second home of our political operations guys. So I think, okay, this is a little bit of an inside thing. Just let's have a little fun.
Yeah, I read it because we don't filter. That's one of the things we love to do here.
So no. John is my political operations guy, and he's running in Brampton South. John Grant is running in Brampton South. We have 3 candidates.
As a Trillium.
As a Trillium.
So you're fielding about 26 candidates at election, right?
Yeah. And so John Grant, whenever we do a TV show, John says, I'm going to give you $5 for every time you mention John Grant's name. So I don't mind saying John Grant as much as I can.
We're up to $30 already.
And John Grant, John Grant, John Grant, John Grant.
And I take my coffee black, John. All right, so tell me a little bit about the candidates that you have running in the Brampton and Mississauga area.
Right now we have John Grant running in, just let me make sure that I have I say the right names here.
So 26 candidates overall are running for the Trillium Party, formed in 2014. And Jack McLaren, actually, the gentleman who actually crossed from the Progressive Conservatives to the Trillium side, and as a result of that, actually gave the Trillium Party the ability to be the 4th legitimate party.
As outlined by the provincial government.
Right, but Jack does sit as an independent because he wasn't elected as a Trillium.
And it looks like the Liberals might be in the same boat next election.
So back to my question now.
We have 4 candidates in the Brampton area. We have John Grant in Brampton South, and we also have Bill Oprel in Brampton Centre. And we have Gurdeep Dotar in Brampton East. Right. And all these guys are really, really good. Their heart's in the right spot. All these people are, oh, and I want to say Andrew Noel in Dufferin Caledon. You know,
that's the only PC currently, interestingly enough, that is the only PC that is elected is in Caledon. All the rest are all red. Everything else in Peel is all red.
Oh, we're trying to fix that. We want to make it purple.
So,
there's only 2 types of people that get into politics. I've been doing this for forever. And I've run some big candidates, and I made a few
Well, you've made some, without talking too much about you, you've made some candidates, and you've done it. Now what you're doing is focusing your talents for a common sense.
You know what? I'm focusing my talents, if you can call them that, on doing what's right. I told my wife about 4 or 5 years ago, I said, this is it. I know you can't change these parties from the inside. I've spent over 30 years trying to change it. It's impossible. It's impossible to change them from the inside. So I told my wife, we're going to spend this much of our treasure, and I'm going to give 5 years of my life to doing what I feel is right. And you know, it's got so much traction, it's unbelievable. There's only two types of people that get into politics in all my experience. And one is the idealist, the one that just wants to do it because it's the right thing to do, and he believes in. I'm one of those people. You know, my wife would say, be a little less idealistic and more more frugal. But anyways, and then there's the other two type, the opportunist that believes they just have to switch to trick you for 60 days. And then they're going to have a job that they can't be fired from for 4 years. And they act like it, and they will do and say anything to get elected. Right now, look at the promise parade. Look at the budget that Kathleen Wynne brought out. You know, we all should have a pony and a unicorn. I want to be able to spit.
Well, I can tell you from the perspective of some of the people in Brampton, Andrea Horvath came forth and said that she was committing to a hospital. That's a really big thing for the people in Brampton. Hospital care, health care is a big issue.
Why didn't she say that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago? Why isn't she fighting tooth and nail for 4 years to make that happen? Why do you save it for 30 days before an election? Well, everybody knows the answer. Everybody knows the answer because it's going to be the time when they're going to vote me in again. And that's got to stop. Their candidates should be fighting every single day when they go to Queen's Park. That's their only job in life. They get paid handsomely to go in there and be the warrior. You know, nothing disturbs me more than when a candidate doesn't, when not a candidate, but an MPP, an elected MPP, doesn't bother showing up for a vote. That is not right. So they had the bubble bill. Do you know what I speak of when I say the bubble bill? The bubble bill was a bill that was put forward saying you couldn't be within, I think it's 150 meters of an abortion clinic to do any protesting.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so that was a bubble bill.
Yes.
And Jack McLaren, Trillium Party, was the only people that voted against that. And you go, well, that's not right. You know what? That wasn't about an abortion clinic. That wasn't about abortion right to life or not right to life. What that was about freedom of speech and the freedom to collect.
But some people would say the reason of that was they didn't want people hindering access and making people who needed to avail themselves of a legal service
and stuff like that.
That's part
There's
of
laws
that problem.
against that. Why? So get the police in there to do that law. Don't make a new law, because what happens now, you're a labor organizer and oh, now you thought that was all nice. Now I'm running ABC Giant Corp and I say, I don't want those people within 150 feet of the entrance of my place. What foot do you have stand on right now? No one thought about that. Oh, now we got the same problem. And it's the same law. Oops, that one affects me negatively. We have constitutional rights, freedom of speech, right to collect. And I understand where your sympathies are, but we have laws to
protect.
Those
aren't sympathy. I'm just bringing up the alternative point because there are people, I'm hoping, any time that we have a discussion, one, there's always two sides.
Fair
right?
enough.
A sandwich has two pieces of bread, and there's
it makes
always
good
meat
discussion too, and it shows the opposite side.
Because we have to be fair, right? So I just want to come back. Live Town Hall is an interactive show. We're about halfway, talking to Bob Yaciuk, who is the leader of the Trillium Party. If you wish to ask Bob a question, get some meat from Bob, please post it on Facebook Live /Live Town Hall. My name is Michael A. Charbon, here with you with the final hour. And at the end of our discussion, we're going to give Bob an opportunity to speak to you directly and give you a bit of perspective of the Trillium Party. Another question here is, what is your opinion on the 407 situation and the candidates connected to it? We talked about that before we came on camera briefly. There were some candidates. There was one in particular in the Brampton area, a progressive conservative candidate, who had to take himself out of the race because there was allegations. I'm not sure if he was charged.
Yeah,
That's
I'm not sure either. So
I mean, he's innocent until proven guilty, but there were some allegations that potentially there were some data or some phone numbers that were taken from the 407. We seem to have all these, with 2 weeks to go, all these little pimples start to come up and everybody's pushing.
Notice how all that controversy come out the day after the final day to withdraw from the candidacy to put your papers in. It was the day after. Come on, it's a political maneuvering. It doesn't mean it's not true. It doesn't mean it is true.
Yeah.
One thing I know, and as convenient as it would be for me to say, ha ha, those dirty scallywags, I believe strongly, and the law is the law. You're innocent until proven guilty. That also is in the Constitution of the country. And one thing the Trillium Party has is in its party constitution, Number one, you abide by the you abide by the rules of the Constitution of this country, of Canadian Constitution.
So I'm going to hit you when you talk about that. They are stating that there are going to be about 400 refugees or refugee claimants a day crossing over Quebec. Now what's happening is Quebec is saying they're getting overbound. They're starting to send refugees to us. The Ontario government is saying it could be potentially $21 million in addressing some 21 to 22,000 refugees that are leaving the United States from countries that they weren't legitimately allowed to be in the United States, and now they're claiming refugee status in Canada. We do have an agreement with the United States that if they come to a legal border crossing, we can send them back. But they're crossing at this area in Quebec and Aboriginal land, which kind of is a gray area. Where would you stand on that?
Well, I got a bunch of issues, and you know, this is so many people want to come out and make all of us fringe party people, bigots and racists and things, but I do believe in the law. Plain and simply, I do believe in the law. And one of the things is, what I really object to is this. We have in Manitoba, as well as in Quebec and part of Ontario, and as you say, it's mostly Indigenous area. And we have stations where police officers have welcome centers for refugees. They are supposed to be stopping people from coming into the country. Why are you saying go this way? Isn't their job supposed to be, hey, you're not allowed to enter here, you have to apply for status? Is that not the law?
Well, NDP has talked about a sanctuary province. What's your reaction to that?
No, the law is the law, and you know, you go through the rule. So many people come to this country I'm going to say the legitimate way, and I'm going to say it out loud, the legitimate way. We want talented people. We want people that follow the rules and regs. And I have a problem with somebody that comes across the border. We have to take people who are going to be harmed. And when I say we have to, I mean that I'm okay with that. People that are going to be life-threatening. One of the standard rules we have in Canada, and it's a good rule, is if your life is going to be threatened by going back to your own country.
Well, that's refugee status. They say it's going to cost us $21 million, and there are some refugees or illegal aliens, however you want to position it, who are working currently in Ontario and making a go of it. What about those people? I mean, how do we deal with that in comparison to the refugees who are coming illegally?
We do not have a sanctuary province done, settled, done. Thank you very much. Full carriage return. We are not advocating.
Full carriage return.
I'm not all tickety, tickety, tick, ding.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Your full carriage return. It is, no, we are 100% not endorsing the sanctuary province. And you know, one of the interesting things about the Trillium Party is this. We do have some candidates who are sympathetic in that area and stuff like that, and they have the right to say that.
Yeah.
They can't say it's Trillium Party policy, but they have the right to sit at a debate. You know how confusing that gets to some people? Well, I believe in this and this and this. It's not the party stance, but this is what I believe in. God bless them for that.
Well, that's part of what your Trillium Party stance is.
That's
okay,
right.
So let's get to some of the hard facts here. What about debt and taxes? We look at
too much and too much.
So how would you solve that if you were given the reins of this province? How would you deal with $350 billion in debt?
Number one, it's never being paid off, ever. If you think it can be, then you're a little bit delusional. I'm not saying you personally. I'm saying it will never be paid off. Let's do some number crunching here. Depending on who you listen to, it's 319 to 390. If you believe the Liberals, it's 319 to 30.
Well, 350 at the end of 2018 is what it's...
Unless you...
That's the Taxpayers Association of...
Okay, and then the Auditor General says 390 in 2 years. So, anyway, who cares? It's more than 28 bucks, okay? Yeah. The fact of the matter is, if you were to pay $13 billion off of that every year, and that is ridiculous. We'd all be whining and crying and starving to death. It would take, what, 20, 30 years or something like that? Yeah. So, and we're not paying that off. First of all, we stop spending money we don't have. Number one. You know what this, we're going to have a balanced budget thing when someone says in 2020 and say stuff like that? That's like someone coming to your house for a dinner party and say, oh, Clifford and I, we're thinking of not spending more money than we're making in 2020. you're awesome, Clifford. I mean, no, you stop spending what you don't have right this minute. You know, tomorrow is a good day to start that. Now, one good way we can start paying off the debt, if we only had the courage, is to pound a highway and a railway into the Ring of Fire up there. Or we, because the Ring of Fire, a lot of people don't understand what that is. It's the most natural, mineral-rich resource that may be in the world. Certainly for chromium it is. And it's...
Chromium is huge for
massive.
Yeah.
And it's like the oil fields are to...
Nuts.
It's like the oil fields are to Alberta. And yet we can't run a highway in there.
That's a tough example, though, Bob. Alberta was based on the $80 barrel of oil, and it hasn't.
And chromium is what, $2 an ounce? I don't think so. But you know how easy that would be to run a road up there? How inexpensive it would be? It would cost nothing. Well, how do you do that? What you do is you tell these mineral companies, mines, you say, we're going to give you 5 years. And I'm making up this number because I don't know how the numbers would exactly work, but you will pay no taxes for the minerals.
So what would be the results, hypothetically, if you had the ability to run a road up there to the Ring of Fire and mine chromium?
We would be able to retire our debt in extremely short period of time. It would be the gold rush. It would be the gold rush.
That's an interesting plan. Okay.
And it's well proven.
I want to go to another one. Jobs and infrastructure. Every single time we have politicians going through to all the different ridings, they're always promising jobs, 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 infrastructure, you know, no more downloading. If the Trillium Party was given the reins to this province, what would be your jobs?
You're king for the day. Let's say we were king for a day and we could wave our wand and make this legislation.
Jobs and infrastructure, Bob.
Jobs and infrastructure. Jobs are relative right now to the cost of energy, plain and simple, and regulations. Regulatory bodies are killing the jobs here, as well as the cost of electricity, as we call it. Mm-hmm. We have never had such high hydro rates in our lives. When we were growing up, we had the cheapest hydro ever. We all imagined Niagara Falls was powering the world, sort of thing. And you never had a company be concerned about turning on a 300 horsepower electric engine because of production. Energy was virtually free. Now, we got to get back to that style. So how do we do that? Jack McLaren put a private member's bill into provincial parliament. Yes, that's how effective we are. And it was the Affordable Electricity Act. It was endorsed by all three parties. It went to second reading before Parliament dissolved. That doesn't happen. It was supposed to go to the Parliament, and it was supposed to be blown up like every private member's bill comes from the thing. And it went to second reading. It was endorsed because, number one, we're getting rid of the Green Energy Act. That is strangling us. And number two,
the Green Energy Act was they were giving a lot of money to people who were buying Teslas and electric cars.
Well, that's the visual part.
There was
the
a lot
Samsung deals are the ones that are killing us like crazy. The wind energy and the solar power. They all sound very nice, but you're paying through the nose for that. And there's nobody making money on that except for Samsung. Did you know there's environmental, oh man, it's the Green Energy Board, I'll call it. I don't think that's the exact name. But it's made up of 8 people. Every renewable energy project that goes through has to be approved by this board. Has 8 people on it. 4 of them are from Korea, South Korea, and 4 of them are from Ontario. And before anything can be done, a foreign country has to approve of it. When did we do that?
A foreign country has to approve?
South Korea. South Korea. 8 people are on this board.
Oh, because of...
Not because of anything, it's wrong. You cannot justify that. It's actually another thing that's constitutionally not allowed. A foreign country cannot influence that kind of thing. That's just against the rules.
Well, Aecon, the government of Canada just said they didn't want Aecon to be bought by a Chinese company because Aecon is one of our largest from roads to infrastructure. They didn't want...
Meanwhile, the federal government has sold how many mining companies?
No, but that's huge.
That's massive. Aecon are getting contracts up in Northern Ontario. How's that happen? How does that happen?
So when you talk about power, you talk. Doug Ford talks a lot about the $6.2 million man. So the gentleman who runs hydro in Quebec is about $406,000 a year, and the Canadian guy is about $6.2 million a year.
Guy is making about 6.2.
Yeah.
And so what's Doug say?
Well, he says he wants to fire him and fire the whole board, and then the board did a secret little tralala on the back end, so he's going to get a package if Doug wins the election and fires him of $10
You are
million.
100% incorrect here, and anyone that believes that is 100% misled because it's a
So
private company. You can't fire the CEO of a private company. Next, they're going to be firing me. They don't own 51% of the company. They own 40%.
47%.
Nice. Thanks for coming out to dinner. You don't own 51% of the company. And then I love the NDP promise. We're going to buy back Hydro One.
Yeah, where are we going to get that money from?
No. You can't buy back Hydro One because in order to buy back Hydro One, you have to have someone willing to sell it. And there's not an investor right now that owns Hydro One that would sell his stock for, well, it'd have to be outrageous amounts because it's a virtual monopoly and you don't sell a stock that you have a monopoly on. So with these statements that people say and then people blindly follow them, Doug can't fire the CEO. Done. Can't do it. It's illegal to do that. It'd be someone saying, well, Doug's saying, I don't want you running your own company, Bob. Whitewater Software Services, buy water software from me. He said, I don't want you running your own water software company, Bob. I want to fire you. Screw you, Doug. I'm going to run my own company because I own it.
So what about, since 1997, the amount of people who work for this province has bloated. We have over 400,000 people working for the province of Ontario. It's grown by about 43.1%. And
that's how you win
elections. The population of Ontario has only grown 25%. What would you do if you were elected as the premier of this province for the Trillium Party?
Make it much more efficient. Make it much more efficient. And that sounds very fair and vague.
Well, that's because Doug says the same. He wants 4% efficiency across the board, yeah, well, but everybody wants to know where.
Well, no, you make it much more efficient. And as people leave the public sector, you don't hire a replacement for them. You get more bang for your buck. And I know I probably just lost a lot of votes on that. And that's okay because it's the right thing to do. You say those numbers there, and those are nice, cozy numbers. Those are the friendly numbers because that's how many people directly are employed by the province. How about everybody else that makes the money from the province? How about a construction worker that paves the roads? That is always, he paves the roads, and so he's always getting his money from the government to run that steamroller, do they have steamrollers now?
Yeah, they do.
That's paving machine.
Yeah, paving machines, yeah.
As running. Every single cent that's in his pocket, every cent that's in that whole company's pocket comes from the Ontario government.
But we need roads, people say. We need infrastructure, we need to transport.
But recognize where all that money is coming from. That's all your tax dollars. Those are all effectively government employees. We have to cut it back because right now 40% of the population is getting all or part of their income from the provincial government. That means, I don't know if you are, I know I'm not.
No, I'm not.
That means I'm paying for it.
I'm not employed.
That means when I send my taxes
I volunteer my time here, just so that you know. Well, I'm not getting paid for this.
Me too. Look, we have an agreement.
Tracy wants to know, just going on to another question here, Tracy wants to know of the 29 by-elections, if there is a who's going to pay for the by-elections?
Well, wait a minute. I think Tracy's being very optimistic because that's the assumption that the 29 people are going to be progressive conservatives that win them. So, you will pay them if they
Ontario
need to be done.
Yeah.
No, let's say it the way it is. I'm getting a little bit tired, brought to you by the government, paid for the government of Ontario. That's paid for by you. That's paid for by me. So let's quit saying Ontario, the government will pay for them. You and I are going to pay for them. And again, I reiterate, I'm a little bit, don't like the idea of a witch hunt on this. I find it interesting and I have my opinion on it. But these people are innocent until proven guilty. And so if that does happen, the Trillium Party is going to be ready. We're going to be in there like a dirty shirt, and we're going to make sure we put up a formidable force to get those people, wake those people up in those ridings to vote for us.
Auto insurance. In Brampton, there's been a highly contested issue of auto insurance. It's been living in this city for many, many years. The insurance companies say they're rating people by postal code because the postal code is indicative to the amount of charges and claims that we have, and therefore is an influence on the rate that we charge. Brampton specifically has been a very hard hit, probably one of the most expensive areas for car insurance. What would you do if the Trillium Party was put into power with regards to auto insurance rates, specifically in Brampton?
Well, I don't have a specifically in Brampton. You'll have to forgive me for that one.
Yeah, no, that's
but
fair.
I do have a specific.
I'm just representing a common thread
I got that's a big concern here.
Yes.
But one of the things for certain is this. Well, I say for certain. But when one of the big problems with auto insurance that happened in about the late 70s, early 80s, is when they started the pooling. And they started saying, labeling things down to youth between 18 and 19, a female this. It used to be a lot larger pools they had, right? And that's when rates were a lot lower. Also, the fraud is rampant. You know it, I know it.
Yep.
I've been involved in 2 fraud incidents in my vehicle, and I went you know, that balls to the wall on it, and I charged them. I said, you're not extorting money from me when they faked an accident, and I brought the police in.
Yeah.
And I know it runs rampant, and you're just foolish if you don't think it's clamped down.
Well, that's
on
part
this
of what
and
the insurance agencies are saying.
and they're not wrong on the fraud side. I think what your question is almost implying, do we believe in private sector? Do we believe in public auto insurance?
Yes.
And I'm not a real fan normally of public sector.
Should the market determine it? I mean,
open the market up a little bit more. Right now there's so much regulations inside there. I have service vans, and one of my service vans needed to be repaired. I wasn't even going to get the doors repaired on it because the driveway was wide and the truck tipped sideways, and just a small tree put a little dent in it.
Right.
But because it's a service truck, has my label, I thought, you know what, I better get a look after so it looks good. It was $14,000 to get the side of my truck repaired at their certified auto shop there, and I was not even considering getting it done. It was
that's almost a write-off, for goodness sake, Bob.
You think so? It was a dent in the door and 2 doors.
All right, let's move on to another one. What about safe injection sites? Rob Fort says that he's not for it. The NDP and the Liberals believe that safe injection sites allow those afflicted with an addiction a safe place to be able to conduct that, and therefore identifies them and gives them the opportunity to be helped.
I'm not. Number one, they don't have to accept help. I'm not for it. Let's just be candid for it. I'm not anything that encourages illegal activity. I'm not for it. I'm not for safe robbery sites either. I'm not for safe mugging sites. I'm not for safe injection sites. I understand the sympathies here, and when somebody has a problem and they're identified, I'm for getting them into rehab. I am for that, but I'm not for facilitating it. And you know, everybody likes this stuff until it's in their backyard. Do you remember when we were growing up, the park was a place you sent your kids to play in the swings and stuff like that? You didn't even have to escort them there. You just said, okay, I'll see you when the lights, when the street lights come on,
it's time
yeah,
to go
you
home.
get home there. And you didn't think twice about it. Would you do that now with your kids? The answer is no. Nobody would do that with their kids right now. And why? Because you got crazy nonsense like this. You got people are afraid now. And part of it is because there's people out there saying, well, let's have safe. They're recognizing that these safe injection sites are often in parks.
Well, there's always a bit of NIMBYism, right? Not in my backyard. People say that at least if they're safe injection sites, at least they're corralled into one area instead of being...
You can't say corralled with people.
Well,
There's going to be a black van coming
about
around your house
illegal
at night.
drugs being...
Did you just say we're talking about illegal drugs being injected?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen them in Vancouver. I've been on Hastings Streets. I did a series on that, and it is a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing on many issues.
So let's address the problem and get them into rehab. Let's not facilitate it. I'm of the camp that I believe it facilitates it. It encourages, I'm going to say, bad behavior.
Let's talk about marijuana. Some would say that the reason that Mr. Trudeau got elected was a formidable amount of that was on the marijuana vote.
And nice hair.
And good hair. And he's a young fella. And so the marijuana discussion is coming up. It's definitely something that the Ontario government is entertaining, and they're talking about instituting or igniting the LCBO as the conduit to be able to market the marijuana on behalf of the government of Ontario. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, that's an interesting thing. We are full 100% private sector for the marijuana. Okay, folks, I don't care whether you're for marijuana or against marijuana. Federal government said we're having marijuana in Ontario. Done, settled. Now our objective is to make sure it's as safe as possible. That's where the provincial government comes into play. And the LCBO model is not the safest way to do it. Right now we have...
So what is the answer?
Private sector distribution, the places that we have...
You think the private sector... Wait a second. Wait a second. We still in Ontario cannot buy booze on the corner store. We have to go to a licensed beer store or the LCBO. And the reason that some people feel that that's important is because they enforce the law. Somehow,
really, do they? Have you ever seen an LCBO closed down because they served to a minor? Once in your entire lifetime, have you ever seen it? Never happened. Have you ever seen a corner store shut down because they sold cigarettes?
Well, I don't, because we don't have them in Ontario. I mean, we have the dépanneurs in Quebec and in many other provinces.
I'm talking about a corner store selling cigarettes. They sell cigarettes to a minor. They're shut down. They're actually have to.
So your position then is that you believe the private sector is better equipped to dispense marijuana than the
better
LCBO?
Equipped than the private sector. You know why? Because I'm offended by the idea the government calls business people stupid. I'm not a stupid person. You know, I don't plan on opening a dispensary either, but I'm not a stupid person. I don't believe that a person working at the LCBO is some rocket scientist that has some super degree in safety and caring about his citizens any more than me. If I have a small shop and I'm selling marijuana, I put my kids through school, I pay my mortgage, and everything that I have in life is invested in this shop. I promise you, I'm not going to break a single rule and single regulation. I'm not having my employees protected by a union that's going to say, oh, well, he just sold it 3 times this month, but that's below average. Right now, that person who runs that shop is going to have a vested interest in making sure he or she follows every rule there is to follow. And that's not going to be the same way with the LCBO. I'm sorry to tell you this, folks, but I know people, and I'm not going to say myself, when I was younger, we could get booze from a liquor store pretty easily. And nobody ever shut down a liquor store. And it's more expensive, less quality, and you travel almost anywhere across this province.
Well, the one difference is that we do not have an undercurrent of stills running moonshine in Ontario, whereas the pervasiveness of illegal marijuana exists. But that's another
Come on over to my house on Thursday night.
Woo! So with about 5 minutes left, I want to ask you one more question, and then I want to give you an opportunity to speak to the folks at home. You're running in the Newmarket, Aurora area. When you talk about the Greenbelt, the Niagara Escarpment, I mean, there was a little bit of discussion earlier from our politicians about that. Newmarket, Aurora, you're right on that area. You're close enough that it can affect you.
Massive.
So
a lot of people don't even know they're.
So what's your position on the Greenbelt?
Greenbelt's written in stone. People like the Greenbelt, and that was demonstrated when Doug Ford said basically. Well, he said twice. He says that we want to open up the Greenbelt for building affordable housing.
Yes.
Anyone believes that's what he wanted is ridiculously crazy. And what did he do the next day? The hue and cry was massive.
Yeah, we heard from our people.
Oh my God, heard from the people. How many people could he hear from in that short period of time? What he heard from his caucus members, because he neglected to talk to them before he decided to make up a new policy. And he heard from them, and they all said, "What are you doing, Doug? We're going to die on this. We're canceling it." Really? Which one are you going to believe? And then what? It was 2 or 3 years before, where he was on video saying he's going to pave over the Greenbelt.
Yeah, that was.
Oh well, you want to find out what a person's going to do in the future, judge by what they've done in the past. It's that simple. Oh, the flip-flop back and forth on that. Anyways, the Greenbelt is important to the people. Whether I agree with it or not is almost irrelevant. What I do know is that the people in Newmarket, Aurora think that it is like God's country and it's better not change, and that's the only obligation I have to do. I have to go to provincial parliament, and if the Greenbelt issue comes up, I have to put okay, we keep the Greenbelt. Done, settled. And you can't just, a law is a law. You can't be changing it willy-nilly. You know what? You want a referendum? There's a referendum issue. Put that on a referendum issue and say, okay, we'll change it. Not just a referendum, we'll have a binding referendum where it'll be on there. And the moment you think your vote will count for something is the moment you'll really be engaged. You say, okay, wait a minute, my vote does matter. Maybe I better pay attention to what people are saying. And that's how you solve it.
That's how you solve it. Okay, with 3 minutes left, Bob, I want to give you an opportunity to speak directly to the folks. You're the leader of the Trillium Party, established in 2014. You have fourth party status. This is an important election for you. You have many people running, 26 candidates running in this election. And this is a watershed mark for you guys, I think, because you really come to the fore. So I want to give you an opportunity to talk to the folks and tell them why the Trillium Party is a party that they should consider.
Thank you very much. The Trillium Party is the only party in running in this election that believes that we shouldn't have a party vote. The Trillium Party is the only party that's going to allow you to have your say in provincial parliament and not have the leader be the one that speaks for you in the party. You know, an interesting thing, let's do the politics by the numbers. Right now, 40% of the people are voting. That means 6 people aren't voting. So if you break it down, that means if you have a room of 10 people, 4 of those people are deciding what everybody in the room gets, how they get to live their life for 4 years. But let's break it down a little bit more. 1 of those people are going to be voting for blue, no matter what, because it's in their genes. Doesn't matter what happens, they're going to vote for PC because granddaddy did it. 1 of those people are going to vote for the Liberals, no matter what, because their granddaddy voted for them, and they're just going to vote for him. That means only 2 people out of 10 are going to decide how this next election is, and unfolds, and who's going to be the leader or who's going to be running Parliament. I want to ask you, any of the 6 people out there that aren't voting because they feel disenfranchised, I want to ask you to try something just once. I just want you to spend 1 hour of one day out of for the next 4 years to get off your butt, go out and make a difference. Let's shake up those other 3 parties. If you vote for a Trillium Party candidate, you're going to wake them up and they're going to go, oh my God. The other parties are going to go, oh my gosh. Looks like the people are waking up and they're looking for another alternative. We better start doing what you say. So they're going to start putting policies forward that you're going to be in favor of. Because as soon as you wake up and start caring, the only way they're going to be able to keep their job is by doing what you want. In the meantime, support the Trillium Party. We'll ask the pointy questions in provincial parliament like we've been doing, and we'll represent you well. We've already made a difference. The policies that are out there today that many of you are voting for were our policies. They were adopted in just 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago. And they are adopted because of the Trillium Party, because we were chewing their tail off. So come on, support us. Check us out on trilliumontario.ca or go to voteforbob.ca. And anyone in Newmarket, Aurora, vote for Bob. Thanks.
Bob Yaciuk, leader of the Trillium Party. I'd like to thank you, Bob, for coming by. You're always a good sport, energetic, and appreciate your.
Not shy is something I've been told.
No, you're not shy. No, we had a spirited discussion before we came to air, and it was always enjoyable. And I thank you for as well bringing Jack McLaren by when that altercation happened, because we were very appreciative of you coming to us and sharing your time with us.
It's the least we can do is to get out there. And you know what? I want to extend that thank you to you for being one of the people having the courage to actually have other people on, rather than the big 3 only, because at least you're getting another opinion out there. You might not vote for me, you might vote for me. I'm okay, but at least you're getting the information to make a decision, and you're the person doing that sort of thing.
Thank you, Bob. We are all volunteer here. We have to say thank you to Don McLeod and Fazil Khan from the Brampton Focus and from the Live Town Hall group, and of course Cash and Joseph as well. We are all volunteer. I'm volunteer. We give our time because we want to be a political incubator and we want to serve you. We also say on June 7th during the election, we will be running a live town hall covering the election, which is specific to Brampton, so to Brampton, Mississauga, and Caledon, to the Peel region. So if you're interested in seeing what your candidate is doing in your riding in Peel, we invite you to tune in at 7 p.m. for a live town hall. We're going to have a bunch of interesting guests and discussions. Some mayors will drop by, and an interesting coverage, hyper-focused to the region of Peel. Again, thank you to Bob Yaciuk from the Trillium Party. We thank you for watching. My name is Michael A. Charbon. We appreciate your time. Drop us a line and give us a question, and we will continue incubating, as they say, on your behalf. Thanks for watching, and have a good day.